Oh, fucking hell. Uh, I don't know how to even start this one. But before we begin, guys, make sure to drop a like on this video. Subscribe if you're new, turn on the notification bell. It all helps the channel. Like I said, I'm baffled by the headline, and there's so much to talk about. But basically, for those of you who just wanna watch the few first seconds of the video to know what we're talking about, Bloomberg is seriously considering Clinton for his VP position. Now, we're gonna talk about in just a second on how it's going to affect Bloomberg's electability and future and his status as a living man. But let's read a little bit of the article and then we'll move on. Matt Drudge, the famous news aggregator and internet provocateur, shattered the lull of an otherwise calm Saturday morning with a big if-true bombshell. Sorry. Exclusive. Bloomberg considers Hillary running mate. Source close to Bloomberg campaign tell Drudge report that the candidate is considering Hillary as a running mate. After their polling found the Bloomberg-Clinton combination would be a formidable first, the tweet continued, pointing to Drudge's eponymous website where the scoop was played in underlined type above the scroll and a bright red all-caps headline. So first of all, just based on these two paragraphs and all the things I saw on Twitter, looks like a serious rumor that's been coming up. Obviously, there's nothing to substantiate it yet, but I won't be surprised if Hillary would run as a VP and maybe setting herself up for the next election. I don't know. It seems like her only way to be elected to be president is through the VP position, and I'll explain it in a second. This is not Hillary making a play for the VP position. No, this is Hillary making a plan, making her way to the fucking presidential position. Now, for those of you that don't know of or been living under a rock, most people associated with the Clinton administration or the Clintons in general find themselves dead after they kill themselves in a video game, of course, because YouTube won't allow us to talk about it without getting demonetized. But I think her big play is just going to be elected as VP, and then a week or two later, Mike Bloomberg will be flooded with all the, the regular feelings you get when you're elected to be the president of the United States, and he'll just off himself in a video game, of course. And then we are left with VP, who's now President Clinton. Now, obviously, that's a conspiracy theory, and I'm just making fun of it. But think of it seriously. Like, do you remember the lawsuit that Tulsi Gabbard filed like 2 months ago, where she said where she sued Clinton for defamation, and then specifically stated that she doesn't have now, or will not have any feelings that will lead her to suicide herself because she's going to sue Clinton. And honestly, that's the most ominous headline we can read probably for the next few months. Clinton and Bloomberg is going to be pure cancer. Sorry, I'm really sick right now, but I couldn't pass up on this video. Sorry. There's so much to talk about, and we were only two paragraphs deep. Just think about Michael Bloomberg, who's honestly an easy pill to swallow for conservatives, because he's more right-wing than most of the candidates running as a Democrat candidate, maybe even more than Tulsi. He's definitely center for sure. And Hillary, you can't pin her down, honestly. She just goes with the flow because she's a career politician. But this is the most corporate ticket you can probably run. Like, a guy who's worth 61 billion, who technically can spend 100 million dollars a day, every day in his campaign until the election, and he'll still be worth like what 30 billion dollars. Obviously, that's a little bit hyperbolic because I think a lot of this money is tied to his worth rather than being liquid cash that he can use. Even though I heard people throw it around a lot, I don't think he can actually spend $100 million because, again, a lot of that capital is tied to his worth and companies that he owns shares in. But imagine that. Imagine the guy who's trying to buy the presidency, buying influencers as well. If you don't know, there's a tweet. I should have pulled it up before the video, but there's a tweet of a black activist, I think in Portland, who we might call him an SJW. I don't know of him yet, but it seems like the typical leftist SJW who was Mike Bloomberg tried to buy his endorsement for $6,500, I think, per month. And it's not you. It's not new. He contacted several influencers online, and obviously came up short with a lot of them because a lot of them talk about it on Twitter and on their YouTube channel. Honestly, I wouldn't mind it. I'm not a political activist either way, and Mike Bloomberg is a centrist, right-wing politician that's easy to swallow. I don't know why he's running for Democrats when he's a stop and frisk guy. And if you've seen the two interviews he gave on the radio last time, where he talked about crime statistics, seems like something the people would call alt-right on his side of the fence, because he was talking about crime statistic objectively and saying that it's an issue, and obviously he didn't pin it down on race but rather on your social economic standing. Anyway, if you hear this, if you see this video by any chance, Mike Bloomberg or Mike Bloomberg's staff, you can contact me. I don't mind shilling for you. He's a right-wing candidate after all, disguising as a Democrat, honestly. But people don't like him. People don't like the fact that he's buying his way into the presidency. Um, him and Hillary are just one of the same, honestly. Maybe he's more right-leaning than her, but still, it's like is probably the most hateful pair you can run on the ticket. Maybe only if you run Bernie and AOC, that would probably be the worst ticket in my opinion, but this is the second worst pair you can make. Let's read on. Drudge, of course, has a long and complicated history with Clinton-related news, having broken the Monica Lewinsky affair with Bill in 1998 and then given surprisingly favorable treatment to Hillary's 2008 campaign. As outlets from CNBC to the New York Post to the UK's Daily Mail played up Saturday's story, Bloomberg's campaign downplayed the report but didn't deny it. We are focused on the primary and the debate, not VP speculation. Jason Schechter, the campaign's communications director, said in a statement. Drudge also reported that the billionaire was looking to change his residency from New York, where Clinton also resides, to a home he owns in Colorado or Florida. Although subject to interpretation, the Constitution's 12th Amendment states that the presidential and vice presidential candidates shall not be an inhabitant of the same states. Now this is something I did not know, and it gives more credence to this rumor, I guess. By Saturday afternoon, Drudge was linking from his own homepage to the report carried in the Daily Mail, citing Drudge's own as yet unconfirmed scoop. So this is like, I forgot the name of it, but they're creating a source out of thin air, but by making articles that keep referring to each other as source, but there's no really an original source or a reliable source you can use. I forgot the name of it, but there's a name for it. News of the possible Bloomberg Clinton ticket drew a swift reaction online with Trump's world figures relishing the idea. Obviously, the guy is not very electable as a Democrat. Democrats don't like him, even though he is trying to buy the election. Um, I mean, like I said, Trumpers might like him, but they have Trump, so they won't go for him anyway. And adding Clinton as his VP may give him uh, like some good rep with former Clinton voters who still like her and still moan about the fact that she quote unquote won the election because of the popular vote. Um, I think it's actually a good choice for him to run as his VP, um, but there's still a long way from that from VP announcements. I can think of absolutely nothing that would make at real Donald Trump and his supporters happier, conservative commentator Candace Owens tweeted. Do it at Hillary Clinton, make our day. Others, including former Trump campaign advisors Jason Miller, threw cold water on the prospect of Bloomberg selecting the Democratic 2016 presidential candidate as his running mate, calling it a smokescreen to ensure other Democratic candidates don't receive attention. Obviously, they're throwing their idea out there to see how people will respond to it, and it seems like most people don't like it, but they're not. I wouldn't call them Bloomberg voters anyway. And if you're a guy who's willing to vote Bloomberg, a guy who's literally buying the election, I don't think you mind Hillary Clinton, who's a corporate shill, as his VP. You will probably like it because you're the guy who votes blue no matter who, I guess. Crooked would add partisan lightning rod dynamic Bloomberg. Currently avoids in the general, Miller wrote. Some also pointed out that Raj had recently lost some legitimacy in Trump world after running a series of stories criticizing the president. Could it be a way to get back on side with the president and his supporters, or was it typical Drudge mischief making? Others, meanwhile, noted the report clouded the news cycle after the New York Times and Washington Post released deep dive stories on Saturday morning that detail Bloomberg's philanthropy for influence network and history of alleged sexist comments, respectively. So yeah, like I said, a lot of old footage of Bloomberg's cringy behavior and shit that he done that would cost him Democratic votes are floating up right now because people don't like him, and this could have been an easily a political stun grenade, let's call it, to take attention from what's been fucking going on Twitter, um, because it's been coming out that, like I said, he's buying quote unquote influencers and political voices. I don't have the tweet pulled up, but there's let's see if I can pull it up. One sec. I think I liked it on my Twitter page. There it is. You have legendary journalist Sam Donaldson, who's never endorsed a single uh, candidate in, they say, 52 years. I don't know. And now he's endorsing Bloomberg. He's obviously bought and paid for, or I don't know his relation to Bloomberg. Maybe he's a good friend of his and just does a favor for him. But obviously he's paying for those endorsements, and he is eventually slowly buying one voice by one, paying millions for them. I wouldn't say it's not working, because people who wouldn't vote Bloomberg wouldn't vote for him anyway. Him buying the voices doesn't change those votes. So him buying those endorsements, though, exposes him to a new crowd and people who are fanatic about people like Sam Donaldson or other influencers who can convince them to vote Bloomberg. So, yeah. By Saturday afternoon, Clinton had not publicly responded to the report, but earlier this month, Clinton told Ellen DeGeneres in an interview that she probably wouldn't be asked to be vice presidential candidate. Never say never, Clinton said, but it's not going to happen. Meanwhile, Trump himself has yet to weigh in on two of his pet subjects on Saturday, gossip concerning his erstwhile political nemesis and his new rivals on the 2020 trail. I mean, if Bloomberg ever gets to be the Democratic candidate and elected, not elected, and he's going to debate Trump with Clinton as his VP, it's gonna be a massacre in the debates. Like, can you imagine the crooked Hillary and Mini Mike's jokes he will make all the time? They're not gonna win it. But it's probably good for Bloomberg to win the Democratic ticket, honestly, if he would have run for it. If he would have picked Hillary for it, I think overall. So yeah, that's the entire video. I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. They're always fun to read, and it's always good to read a fresh perspective, even for those of you that don't align with me politically, and maybe even know more than I am, because what am I but a glorified article reader who has some knowledge in this SJW world just by experiencing it for it's like almost 4 years now. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. It helps a ton for the channel. If you're new, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.